Hello, everyone, and welcome to another brand new episode of the Jedi Way here on the Outlaw Nation channel. I am the Outlaw, John Rocha. That's still my name, damn it. Whether I'm playing or not, it's still my name. And I'm here joined, as always, by my awesome partner, steeped in the lore of Star Wars knowledge, Laura Kelly. How are you?
I'm amazing. I'm excited to talk about Boba Fett today, and I'm wearing the one thing that I own that has Boba Fett on it. He's right there. He's very small. That's all I got, though, and you can't even really see him. So this may have been a failed experiment, but it's fine.
I would have worn something today, except that my shirts are still coming from TeePublic. I ordered a bunch of stuff from TeePublic on Black Friday, and it's still, because of supply chain issues, it's taken forever to get here. So hopefully it'll be here by the weekend, and I'll be able to break it out at some point later on in December with one of our shows for sure. But yeah, Boba Fett, we're going to be talking about the Book of Boba Fett on this show. You know, normally we like to talk about a theory or a concept or whatever, but Book of Boba Fett is just around the corner. Everyone's very excited. So we're talking about this because there was a interview with Temuera Morrison, and he dropped some interesting quotes. There was even some more follow-up quotes from Robert Rodriguez, and we thought we'd speculate or talk about what we might be getting or seeing in the Book of Boba Fett, and to lead into this interview that he had that Temuera Morrison had, talking about how Boba Fett was going to fill in some of these gaps in the Star Wars universe or Star Wars knowledge and what have you. So very, very interesting stuff that we're going to be talking about here and getting, our points of views on it. And if you're watching it, because this is a pre-produced video, please make sure you leave a comment to anything we're talking about as we're talking about it. What do you think? What do you think is the truth of this? What do you think you're going to see? What do you speculate? What are you looking forward to? All of that as we jump into the Book of Boba Fett. So, Laura, let's just go all the way back to the beginning here. As you mentioned, you've only got one picture, but what is your experience and your connection to Boba Fett? What was your reaction when he showed up at the end there as kind of, well, first of all, in this Mandalorian season 2, but then as a button to have his own series, which is premiering later on this month?
You know, for the most part, I kind of always saw him as like a pretty cartoony character. I mean, he has like the most ridiculous cartoony death. He's got like what 6 lines total in the saga films, or at least in the original trilogy. So there's just not that. There was never that much to go off of. And it wasn't a character I particularly connected with in the prequels. So I just I've always been like pretty indifferent to Boba Fett, to be honest. But I think I found myself in a very similar situation that a lot of people found themselves in last year when The Mandalorian season 2, whenever that was, that came out, where we were all suddenly like, oh my God, is Boba Fett cool? Like, a lot of people already knew, but there's there's like a decent sized population of us who like didn't know that Boba Fett was as cool as he was. So that was like a really cool treat for me. It was really exciting for me to see like everybody who was really excited about it. Because it was everyone from people who've been hardcore Boba Fett fans their whole life and have had the action figure and watched the holiday special and were like, oh my God, who's that? Like those people, and then people like me who are like, oh, I maybe misjudged this. That was the camp that I was in. So I'm excited to see the show. This isn't like the show when, Disney Plus announced all of these new shows that were going to be coming out. This wasn't the one that really got me excited. There's a bunch of the other shows I'm a lot more excited for. So I'm kind of going into this with like pretty low expectations because I kind of think it's maybe not going to be my cup of tea. But I thought that about The Mandalorian too, and, color me surprised. So I'm ready to be surprised again, should we end up down that path.
Yeah, and I think it was brilliant what they did. First of all, bringing back Temuera Morrison was a bit of a surprise. This is an older actor. He certainly didn't look in the best shape in Book of Boba Fett 2, but in Mandalorian 2. But what we see in the Book of Boba Fett already from these clips, they dropped, as we're recording this, they dropped another 1-minute clip earlier today. He is in much better shape, and you can tell that this is they realize that they're going to put this series in motion, and they want him to look like he's in here for the long haul. So I'm excited about that. But also they added Fennec Shand. I think that was essential. I don't think people are going as crazy about this series because I think you're 100% right, Laura. Some of us who are old school Star Wars fans, we forget that there are people who come to Star Wars from way different places and don't come in through the original trilogy. They come in through different avenues, and then they look at our fandom of an original trilogy character, as you said, that only had 6 lines, and go, what are y'all making such a big deal about? And to us, we're like, are you insane? He's so cool. But the truth is, it's a great way to kind of bridge that gap, having Fennec Shand, who is a badass warrior, certainly a much younger in terms of appearance and look and history of Star Wars than Boba Fett. So you can put a lot on that, and of course appealing to the female fan base as well, and even the people of color fan base, seeing someone like Fennec Shand be involved in this. And it's a great chemistry that they both have, because Boba Fett was pretty much seen as a loner through a majority of the what do you call it, the extended universe stuff, and the stuff that we got in canon as well.
Yeah, exactly. I am really excited for her to get to more of this character. I think this is going to be really fun. I'm really excited about the prospect of, like, maybe not even necessarily the idea of like bringing those Bad Batch characters in, but at least like making some sort of reference to them and acknowledging that time in her life. Like, this is going to be a very different Fennec than what we saw in the animated show. Now, we got, you know, a great introduction to her in The Mandalorian, but I like where they took the character when we saw the more, you know, the younger, more inexperienced Fennec Shand in her sort of early days in her early career as a bounty hunter. This is going to be very different. So I think it's going to be really fun. I think you're right. This is a great opportunity for, you know, we've got 2 leads that are people of color. That's really exciting that they are leading a Star Wars show in that fashion. I think this is it's going to appeal to a lot of people, I think. And I think that the people who maybe aren't as excited for Boba Fett, hopefully they do get excited for Fennec Shand, because it looks like she is going to be a big part of this.
And you could argue that maybe they made the right decision, because remember, initially there was going to be Boba Fett a Star Wars story. There was a lot of rumors that it was going to be its own film and what have you. But maybe they sensed or heard, or in their internal polling, they found that a lot of the younger fans, a lot of the younger generation didn't give two craps about Boba that much. And so they figured maybe this wasn't the best way to go. Let's go through the TV show. And so the surprise of the reception of Mandalorian, then that season 2, great way to launch him and to kind of give more of a background to the Mandalorian culture and what that means, was a great way to bring Boba back. And now we've got some interesting paths that we're going to walk, hopefully, within the Book of Boba Fett. I mean, Robert Rodriguez is the one who is steering the ship now. Got to be honest with you, I'm not always the biggest fan of Robert. Look, I'm a Latino. I love a Latino being successful as a filmmaker. I'm all about it. I do like some of Robert Rodriguez's stuff, but some of his stuff goes way out there. But I like the episode he directed, so that made me excited, especially because he stepped in almost kind of last minute to direct it. So that gives me hope. That gives me some excitement. And he's going to be more ground-based. He's going to be more street-level approach here, even though it feels like we're going in the kind of the Godfather route. I think we're going to get some stronger scenes than maybe we've seen in The Mandalorian. Do you anticipate that with someone like Robert Rodriguez executive producing and show running this series?
You know, I'm not super familiar with his work. So when I saw that he was going to be directing this episode of The Mandalorian, I another thing I sort of went into with very much indifferent. But I remember, I think it was like the Disney Gallery series that had a whole segment with him where he was talking about how he basically had like envisioned the entire like reintroduction of Boba in The Mandalorian, and the way that he, like, there's actually camera footage of him acting out the entire way he wanted to shoot it with his son. And it's so delightful to see that amount of joy and energy going into something like that. So I think that they made a really good choice in bringing him in. Some of the stuff that we've heard him, you know, some of the comments he's made about the show, about how I think, you know, he said he sort of made mentions about how it's going to be a little bit more violent than maybe what we're used to. And, you know, if it's going to blow your minds, I think is maybe another phrase that was used. So it'll be interesting to see exactly how it goes. But, you know, you use the word grounded, and I think that's a good way to sort of anticipate this, because I think we are going to be spending a lot more time on Tatooine. I don't know if we're going to be in the Slave One that much and out in space and doing and like having space battles with God knows whom at this point in the timeline. I don't know if we're going to get a ton of that, and that's okay. You know, we got the we got the explosion of everybody's favorite seismic charge in The Mandalorian, and
Yeah.
if we don't see another one, that's fine. I got the one that I needed from there. But I think that, yeah, we're going to be spending a lot more time sort of on Tatooine establishing what will end up being the foundation of, I imagine, a show that's going to last a couple seasons.
Yeah, I was having this discussion with the Geek Buddies the other day. We were kind of battling about this amongst ourselves, me versus Michael, basically, Shannon trying to mediate. But this idea of, although we are moving into this new era of Star Wars with these TV shows, with these series, and we're getting characters that are not necessarily the Skywalker saga, it's all still taking place around the Skywalker timeline. If you connect Anakin to Luke and Leia, it's still taking place around the Skywalker timelines, with Kenobi there on Tatooine, with now we got Book of Boba Fett here on Tatooine, which is 5 years after Return of the Jedi. So everybody's still alive. And even Andor is going to go a little further back, but still be part of the kind of rebellion against Anakin Skywalker. And so where's Luke going to be in all of that, or Leia and all of that? So to me, although they are moving forward with new even Ahsoka in a way is kind of connected somewhat to the Skywalker timeline. So to me, yes, we're moving away, but we're not moving away from familiar territory. So are you excited that we're going back to like 2 series on Tatooine, both Kenobi and this one? Do you have what's your feeling about Tatooine as a planet and as a place to set a series?
Well, first of all, I want to correct you in the pronunciation, because Boba Fett Tatooine. He's got like, it's such a unique pronunciation
Tatooine.
of Tatooine,
Yes.
and I love it so much. It's my favorite. Now I can't stop hearing it. To be totally honest, I'm not super pumped about spending that much time in the desert. There's not enough to look at, in my opinion. When you're talking about those vast wide shots of just sand, I could take or leave it. But I think what we've seen so far, I don't think it's going to be just that, especially not with Boba Fett. Kenobi, I don't know, because it sounds like we're going to be spending some time away from Tatooine and Kenobi. But with Boba Fett in particular, I mean, whatever town we're in, the camera work that we've seen so far, I think, in these trailers and these TV spots that they're releasing has been really pretty to look at. So I don't think that, I think like I said, I have low expectations for what this is going to be and how it's going to look. But from what we've seen so far, I think it's going to be very impressive. I mean, one of my favorite shots we've seen so far is that like very far back wide shot of like the entrance to Jabba's palace and the door coming up. Like it's gorgeous. So I'm excited to see that all play out in whatever proportion it's going to play out, because it does look like there's going to be some things that are maybe differently sized than they were in like Return of the Jedi. I'm not sure. Like maybe we're just in a different location altogether. But it'll be interesting to see how they put Tatooine to use, and sort of, you talk about like New York City is a character in this movie, and it's like, are you going to do that with Tatooine? Are you going to make it the beloved character that it has not been for me yet? I mean, good luck.
Maybe. Yeah. I mean, certainly the challenge is there. And I want to give or drag some quotes out here from Erica Maya, who wrote this editorial on Rotten Tomatoes about the Book of Boba Fett, kind of giving a little more background here, saying that the Book of Boba Fett will take place in the era 5 or so years after the Return of the Jedi, as I mentioned here earlier. For lack of an official name, he says, we'll call it the New Republic era, in an echo to the early expanded universe novels, games, and comics. It is a time when the newly established Republic faces a lot of backlash from Imperial enclaves and plenty of internal tensions the Rebel Alliance set aside to combat the Empire. And that's going to be probably what we'll look at in Ahsoka and in the 3rd season of Mandalorian. But it might, he's speculating, factor into what they're doing here in the Book of Boba Fett. This will probably be more focused on the scum and villainy side of things, as we saw, kind of, as I mentioned earlier, the Godfather approach to this that everyone seems to be referencing, because he's got all those heads of the families sitting there at the table. But this is an interesting approach to take with a series like this. And then you wonder, are some of those underworld scripts or concepts or ideas or storylines gonna kind of find their way into the Book of Boba Fett? What do you think?
I think they might. I mean, certainly concept art that we saw in the past. I mean, that's always been the case with Star Wars. If there was something that was designed for A New Hope in 1976 when they were putting it all together, like, if it didn't make it into the movie then, it probably made it into the Clone Wars TV show at some point. So, they're constantly recycling things and finding new uses for it. So, I think there'll be some familiarity there for sure.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to see if they do that for sure. But I mean, let's take a look at some of the comments and the quotes. These are things that kind of motivated me to suggest this as a possible topic for us. You mentioned the idea of Robert Rodriguez talking about it more, getting a little more hardcore into it. And then you have this interview with Tamora Morrison. He was talking to, I think, Comic Book. No, he told SFX magazines, give proper credit here, but we're getting this from CBR.com. He said there will definitely be a number of answers, some long-winded answers, some short and sharp answers, some colorful answers. We're filling a lot of the gaps. And then Ming-Na Wen said in the Book of Boba Fett, there will be a lot of exploration of the dynamics between Boba and Fennec Shan, how they complement each other, what they get out of that relationship. He's someone she respects, and they've definitely bonded with him saving her. It allowed her to realize that she might be better off not being solo anymore. She sees her alliance with Boba Fett as a very smart move in the sense that she'll have somebody watching her back. And even though it might be some extra baggage to have to align herself with someone else, the reward for her at the moment is greater. So interesting approach here from both sides. One talking about long-winded, short, sharp answers, all this kind of stuff. And then talking about that we're going to fill in some gaps. And then Ming-Na Wen's comments about it's going to focus a lot on their relationship. So are we getting, in essence, like as people said about Captain America Civil War, is this Avengers 2.0, 2.5? Is this what we're getting? The Book of, are we getting the Mandalorian 2.5? Is that what you sense we might be getting here?
I don't think so. And, I have sort of questioned, like, if we're going to be getting a lot of, like, tie-ins in terms, at least in terms of, like, character, maybe a little bit of storyline from, like, The Mandalorian. Are we going to address any of that? Bring back Bo-Katan or Din Djarin or whomever? I don't know if we want to bring that in at this point. I think they probably want to have Boba Fett, like, stand on his own for at least this first season, and then we can maybe start tying stuff in later. But I think that with Fennec Shan in particular, this is going to be a really interesting journey to see, because that basically is establishing that she spent the last 25, 30 years of her career flying solo, and is now having to come to terms basically with having a partner. So I hope that they dive into that a little bit so that we can sort of see her struggle and try to come to terms with that, and not that it's just, when we saw her in the Mandalorian reappear, it seemed like it was just this accepted thing. She was saved by Boba Fett in the desert, and he gave her abs of steel, and now she is, I guess, forever in his debt or something, and has to just travel the galaxy with him. But the way that she talked about it in that interview, it doesn't sound like it's like a relationship where she feels indebted to him and it feels like it's something that she's willingly staying on her own because it's advantageous for her as well.
Yeah, it seems like that, right? I mean, because Fennec Shan doesn't strike you as the kind of person who wouldn't do that. So it makes sense that she'd be in a situation here that serves her best at this stage in her life, or this time in her life. This works for her. Plus, Ming-Na Wen went on in the rest of the interview to speak about their connection, because her character almost died and he brought her back to life. He almost died in the Sarlacc pit and was brought back to life in some way. So this kind of near-death experience, the shared experience of that, will bring them even closer together. I don't anticipate a romance here. Do you? I think it feels like two friends hanging out doing their thing. Do you anticipate a romance by any chance?
I don't know if I want to even set an expectation for myself in that sense. I think I want to just let it play out and see how I feel about it. Like, up until this point, that's not really the vibe that I got from like the last 3 episodes of season 2 of like, I wasn't getting that sense. That doesn't mean it couldn't happen and that I couldn't be into it if it did happen. At the moment, it's kind of one of those things I'm interested to just kind of see it play out. I would maybe, if I had to put money on it, I would say probably not. Yeah.
I feel that way too. I mean, there hasn't been a lot of romance that they've kind of highlighted necessarily in these series. So I don't anticipate, like, I don't anticipate there'll be romance in Kenobi, and I don't know if there'll be romance in Andor. I don't know. Seems interesting. Never ends well in romance with Star Wars, does it?
No, it doesn't. No.
Don't fall in love in Star Wars, basically. But let's talk about people who might pop up. You mentioned Din Djarin. I've heard, I think Pedro Pascal in a couple of the trailers have a line or two that is not from The Mandalorian. So I have a feeling something in some way is going to be connected. Maybe it's a conversation on a hologram. Maybe it's something like that. Maybe not necessarily a guest spot. I don't know, but I just feel like we might be getting it. But Cobb Vanth is a possibility, don't you think? I mean, I feel like they set up the Timothy Olyphant thing and didn't really go too deep into it after that episode that he was on. And maybe that was their way of saying, we're going to establish this character, and this character may have more to do here as we go into the Book of Boba Fett.
I would be very excited to see him back. And I think that a lot of people would be excited to have him back. Because, yeah, it does seem strange. Like, let's bring in Timothy Olyphant for just one episode and then let it go.
Right.
But, you know, that we were seeing a lot of great guest stars coming into The Mandalorian. So that could very well have just been the case. I think it would be a huge missed opportunity, though, if they didn't bring him back. So I think it's probably a safe bet that we'll see more of him. Yeah. It makes sense if he's hanging out in Mos Pelgo, I think is where he was. Yeah. And we can't be too far away if we're in Mos Espa. I don't actually know where Boba Fett's going to be taking place. Like, it kind of looks like it might be like somewhere we've seen before. I'm not sure. Yeah. So it'll be a mystery, but more Timothy Olyphant is never a bad thing.
Yeah. We've already seen in the trailer Jennifer Beals, who looks incredible as a Twi'lek. Let me put that on the table right now. This is a woman I knew back in the 80s, for God's sakes, watching her do Flashdance. So crazy to see that she is still doing it, still kicking it, still looks gorgeous as hell. And now in a Twi'lek, now as a Twi'lek, what is her role in this? It looks like she's in charge of that club. Is she the one that loaned out the dancer to Jabba for that moment? I wonder if there's a little anger there from her. I wonder if we're going to get that kind of interplay here. Is she going to be on Boba's side or against Boba in what he's trying to do? What do you anticipate we'll get from her?
Well, she's clearly someone. I mean, yes. we've had so many instances now of like seeing these guest spot or these TV spots and, you know, these teasers where the camera just lingers on her.
Yes.
A little bit longer than it would, I think, if it was supposed to just be no one. Clearly, she's supposed to be, I think, I would guess that maybe she's going to be an important part of whatever town it is that we're in. You know, I like the idea of her being sort of the club owner or bar owner of whatever scum and villainy we're going to encounter in this show. But I think that, yeah, for sure, she's got to be, you know, something a little bit more than just a side character or a single guest spot, I think.
Yeah, yeah. I'll throw someone else out there, and I wonder what your thoughts on this are. And I don't know what your experience or not. I know you study like crazy for the Schmodown, but I don't know how much you might know about Jodo Kast. Do you know anything about that character of Jodo Kast?
No, I don't. Is it canon or no?
It's not canon. It's not canon.
That's why.
Yeah, it's part of the universe thing or the extended universe thing or whatever. But he's a guy that kind of similarly to Cobb Vanth stole some Mandalorian armor, not Boba's Mandalorian armor, but stole some Mandalorian armor and decorated it and called himself Boba Fett for a while and took on some jobs. He's a former member of the rebellion who was just in it for the money. And then when he saw that he could make money being a bounty hunter, he adjusted his armor when he stole it off some Mandalorian there and essentially masqueraded as Boba Fett. So he was able to increase his price as a bounty hunter. And then eventually Boba, when he came back, found out about him, tracked him down, tricked him, and then killed him. So I wonder, because there's similarities to Cobb Vanth's story here. And both of those stories, Cobb Vanth and Jodo Kast, were in kind of that extended universe. I wonder if we're going to have somebody who actually kind of masqueraded as him, whereas Cobb Vanth looks like he took the outfit to do something good with it. You wonder if Jodo Kast is someone who's going to come in and Boba's going to hear about it, and maybe that's a separate adventure, a separate episode where he goes after this guy.
Or what if this person that they bring in to steal Boba's armor and pretend to be Boba Fett is a clone? What if that happened? Which like brings me to one of my points.
I like that idea.
Was like, are we going to see clones potentially in the show? Because like they could be played by Tamura Morrison, and we could be seeing him play multiple characters on the same show. Yeah. That's something I would think would be kind of fun and compelling to see on screen. So yeah. I'm in favor of it. I don't know if it's necessarily going to happen. Maybe not this season, but you know, if they want to take a storyline like that, yeah, why not take advantage of the fact that there are a bunch of him running around the galaxy at this time, you know?
Is Rex a possibility?
I would think so. I mean, I feel like a lot of people are sort of speculating that Tamura Morrison's going to play that role in this Ahsoka show, which would be really fun to see. But yeah, I would like to think that he would pop up at some point.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it seems connected to The Mandalorian season 3 because Jon Favreau said the production of it is going to fall right after the Book of Boba Fett. So I don't know if that means it's going to be released right after the book, which would be surprising to me because they've done no promotion for it at all. Or if it's going to start shooting after the Book of Boba Fett. But I think they're already in production, are they not? Am I wrong
Mando
on that?
season 3, is that what we're talking about?
Yeah.
They started filming, I think.
Okay.
So I think we're at least I don't know, maybe a year away from that still. So who knows? Good question.
I was just wondering if we're going to be seeing a little more of that. Now, what do we do with the back to tank? What is your speculation of how he got out of the Sarlacc pit? What is your thought process? What do you think happened? Who do you think it was? Who put him in the back to tank? What is your speculation? They're not surrendering any information right now, but what do you speculate might be the reasons for this happening?
You know, I wish I had like a really creative answer to this, but I feel like I'm just going to voice the theory that I keep hearing over and over again, which is that it was Sand People that rescued him from, I don't know if he fought his way out of the Sarlacc pit himself or if they rescued him out of it somehow, but it would be either way. It'd be really interesting if we could see that. I mean, I think that's a big question that a lot of people have. And the fact that he went down like in such a ridiculous manner in Return of the Jedi, it would be so nice to sort of see like a redemptive, like badass just fighting his way out of the inside of an animal in the desert. Would just be fun to see. So I would be curious to actually watch it play out, but that's kind of I think the common theory running around is that it's Sand People that somehow like, you know, rescue him and somehow get him in back to, I don't know where they got it, but, or where they're storing it. But the fact that, you know, somebody clearly has technology out there on Tatooine. So I wonder if it could even be like Jawas. I would almost wonder if it's that. We've seen a lot of Jawas in The Mandalorian. We know they have access to people who can play Jawas. So I think that could be a fun possibility too.
Yeah, in the trailer we also see some red Niktos rolling around there on their speeders there on their bikes. What do you think about that? Do you think that's going to play a part? How big of a part do you think that's going to play in this run of the Book of Boba Fett?
Well, I do think that the fact that we're getting a lot of like aliens in general, I'm really excited about. I mean, that's one of those things I think that a lot of people have been kind of missing with The Mandalorian, and that we get and even with like the sequel trilogy too, you know, we had a lot of like main characters and even supporting characters that were human. So it's fun to get to see the sort of, you know, the more exotic side of the galaxy, I think. But I'll be curious to see if there are, you know, which remnants of Jabba's reign and subsequently Bib Fortuna's reign are just like standing by waiting for the new leader to take over, or if they're like fighting for their own place to like take over as leader, and it's really kind of Boba Fett who comes out of nowhere. It's really going to be fun, I think, to sort of watch him establish himself in this world that we all know and are familiar with, you know, and we're not totally sure exactly how familiar he is with it because we don't know how long he's been out of the Sarlacc and out of, you know, running around Tatooine with whomever, or if he's been off of Tatooine. It looks like he's just getting the Slave One back with Fennec Shand at some point in the show. So he's been without it for like, I don't know, 4 years or something. Like it's just 5 years, I guess. But it'll be fun to see all of it play out.
Well, let me ask you something as well. It's maybe a little bit controversial. You mentioned Slave One a couple of times now. You know, it seems like they're trying to wipe that name out of existence for the ship. Do you
fire spray?
Do you anticipate rather that they'll make a point of that in the show? Do you think they'll make a point of changing the name, the point of not saying the name? Someone will say the name and Boba will correct them. What do you think?
You know, that's a good question. I think I almost had kind of wondered if they were just going to kind of sweep it under the rug and just pretend it was the fire spray all along. And that would just be whatever, but it would piss off the fanboys who have all their toys and their collectibles and need an explanation for it. So I imagine we will get one. I wonder if it'll have anything to do with the fact that, like, you know, Jabba and Bib Fortuna obviously ran this part of Tatooine and owned slaves. And I wonder if maybe he's going to come in and just be like, yeah, that sucks. Actually, we're going to change the name of this thing. But I like the new name, the fire spray. Like, it's just a habit to. I know. I actually like the fire spray a lot.
Look, I still say it every once in a while. So I'm no way was I kind of coming after you. I was more like, oh, this is an interesting source of conversation. What do we think is going to happen? I would not be surprised. Of course, it's going to make people go crazy and make people say, you know, talk about social justice Disney or whatever. But I anticipate they'll find a way to highlight that in some way so that no one, because I mean, everyone names their ship when they're in their ship. So in Star Wars, if it has a name, so the Falcon gets used all the time. So why wouldn't the name of his ship kind of roll into this? Do you anticipate that we'll see a fellow Mandalorian like villain, a Mandalorian rival here? Or do you think this will just be pretty much him? And how is Bo-Katan gonna be a part of this thing with the Darksaber and all of that? Because remember, that's still kind of in process as we go into the Book of Boba Fett.
Exactly. And that's one of those things that I'm really excited to watch it play out in The Mandalorian. I don't know if I really want to see it play out with the Book of Boba Fett, because I kind of think that Boba Fett is just like, yeah, you've got your own mission, lady. Like, you can go do your own thing. I don't think that he has any interest in being a part of it. Yeah. I do like the idea of like bringing more Mandalorians into this show so he could just be like, oh, actually, there's this girl that you should go find. She's trying to like reestablish Mandalore, and she's got this sword, and it's a whole thing. Right. Like, it would be kind of fun to see him like make that connection, despite the fact that he had a lot of tension with Bo-Katan, you know, in season 2 of The Mandalorian. But I don't know if we're going to be seeing much of her, if any at all, in this show.
Yeah, I wonder about that. I wonder where her role is going to be in all of this, because you're right. I mean, this idea of wanting to establish that, and then you wonder, well, what has brought on this change for Boba? Like, he was a bounty hunter. He was, you know, he's following along with Vader. He had, you know, Han Solo in the carbonite. He was ready to go. And then all this stuff happens at the end of the Sarlacc pit. So did he have all this time to think in the Sarlacc pit that maybe his path wasn't the right path, and it was time to change his path, and his force of will is causing this situation to happen? And how many, what's going to happen to make him question whether he's walking the right path? Because it's boring to have a protagonist that's constantly right. You've got to give him some conflict. Even Din Djarin had to kind of struggle with whether he's right or wrong in certain situations. So do you think we'll see that with Boba, him struggling with this decision that he's made and his instincts?
I think for sure we're going to see him struggling. I wonder if maybe a lot of that's going to be in like flashbacks where, you know, we hear him talk about how he was left for dead in the sands of Tatooine. Yeah. Like, whoever pulls him out and puts him in Bacta, and he spends X amount of time, you know, in the Bacta tank. I wonder if that's going to sort of be this symbolic rebirth for him. Yeah. And that's going to end up sort of motivating him. You know, we have to rechristen the Slave One now, and I'm just going to start all over, and it's going to be, you know, a whole journey. But I think setting like those stepping stones first is going to be an important part of, you know, making us connect with this character and really kind of setting the foundation of everything.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to throw another one out there, because I was apparently this has been on Reddit. This idea, make Solo 2 happen. This idea that Han Solo could pop up in the Book of Boba Fett. I mean, taking over Jabba's palace, taking over the running of things on there in Tatooine. Is there a possibility that we get an Alden Ehrenreich cameo as Han Solo? Is that in play?
That would be really fun. I love that idea. I like the idea of just bringing Alden Ehrenreich back in, because it would be fun to see a new... It would be fun. I like his version of Han Solo. I like the fact that, I mean, Harrison Ford is like such a curmudgeon about the whole thing when it comes to Star Wars. So it's fun to see somebody else who has some enthusiasm for it come in and play that role. And I think it would just be, you know, be a fun reason to bring him back. So I would be down for that. I'm trying to think if like we know much about what's going on with Han in at this point in time. And I don't think we do in the canon. But, you know, there's so much going on right now with like Crimson Dawn and Kira happening in the comics that if any part of that story gets gets shoved into this new show, that would actually be, I think, kind of fun to watch it play out too, and a fun way to connect back to the comics for the comics readers.
Oh my God, I would love Emilia Clarke coming back as Kira. That would be a blast to see where she's at and how they work that into this show. And it makes sense, right? I mean, if he's going to be dealing with the underworld here, trying to clean up Tatooine, in essence, what it seems like he's going to do, how would she not be aware of it? You know, and same thing with Han Solo and even Lando. Where's Lando in this time frame here? And we know that a Lando Calrissian series is supposedly on the way from Donald Glover, reprising his role as Lando. So does that come into play? Does a Lando appearance, is that possible? Is a Lando and Han appearance at the same time with Boba. I mean, the internet might explode if you saw that for an episode in the Book of Boba Fett.
You know, I'm trying to think of like how long did we go with The Mandalorian before we were sort of seeing some of these legacy characters? And I just rewatched season 2, so I'm having trouble remembering season 1.
Yeah.
But at least in season 2, like we waited that long to bring in Ahsoka. We waited that long to bring in Bo-Katan. We waited until the end of season 2 to bring in Luke. Yeah. So I wonder if bringing in some of those legacy characters might take away from the experience a little bit, might draw our attention a little bit too far away from Boba Fett. At least this first season, I think we're going to be laying the groundwork and building that character back up, I think, for everybody.
Yeah.
But I think it would be fun to at least get a hint maybe of it, of like, we might go here in season 2. Like, I think that could be fun. And I would be down to have, Emilia Clarke or Donald Glover show back up in anywhere in Star Wars, to be honest.
Yeah, I would too. I mean, and we move on to what he said here, this kind of filling in the gaps. What gaps do you think he's going to fill in here in this series? You know, there are all of these rumors again of these bounty hunters coming back, IG-88, Bossk. I mean, do we think that might happen? Possibly, but what gaps are going to be filled in here that we need to be filled in from Tatooine, from Boba, in terms of what's happening now in the universe at this time?
You know, I wondered about that same thing, because the biggest gap, I think, at least for people who are only watching things on screen, if there's something happening with Boba Fett in the comics at some point between where we leave him in the Clone Wars and where we pick back up with him in the original trilogy, it's not something I've read or am aware of. It could very well exist. But if, you know, there are lots of other people out there like me, are we going to be filling in some of those gaps? Because, like, I don't know. Do you anticipate de-aging Tamara Morrison that much that we can go back that far?
Yeah.
But for me, that's kind of the biggest gap. It was like, what was he doing in all of those years, especially those early years right after the Clone Wars? That's a period of time. I think that's sort of a big question mark. But or could you bring in Daniel Logan for something like that?
Yeah,
that's actually a question.
Well, there's a lot of rumors also speculating that this may be not a what do you call it? Not a creature of the week type thing. There's going to be an overall storyline possibly here with him pursuing other bounty hunters. So does that, who may have screwed him over or taken his job or taken his position, as I mentioned, a couple of the characters here, do you think that's a possibility as well, that we see him going up against a separate bounty hunter almost every week to kind of track him down? Would you want to see a series where Boba is basically eliminating all these fan favorite bounty hunters that people have grown to love week by week?
The creature of the week thing, I think, is something I'm happy to leave in the past. So I'm excited to hear that. But I think that I wonder if that's really his mission, is like taking out revenge on all of those people. If that would be something that he would have any interest in at all. I mean, I think if we're sort of seeing, you know, like a sort of rebirth of this character, and he's wanting to establish himself as a leader, and a fair, respectful one at that, albeit violent if he needs to be. I think that, you know, I think that's a totally different path that it doesn't sound like that's where he's going to be. And I do think it would be fun to see a couple of cameos of some of those characters coming back. We know that Dengar like lives to the sequel trilogy, and he's a little bit worse for wear when we see him in Empire compared to when we see him, you know, in his earlier appearances. I think he shows up in the Clone Wars. He's a little bit more clean cut at that point. But I think it'll be fun to bring some of those characters, those old familiar bounty hunters in. I just don't know if like him exacting revenge is going to be. I would be curious to see if that actually is his mission at any point. Like, we've got 7 whole episodes. He's not going to be setting up shop as the leader on Tatooine for all of them. So it might be nice to go off on an adventure somewhere and, I don't know, cut off IG-88's head, send him to that guy. Or no, you can't even send him to the dude to reprogram, because that dude died in season 1. Never mind. Of The Mandalorian.
He has finally spoken. He can't speak anymore.
He has.
Right. That's a fair point. Yeah, I'm excited to see what gaps they're going to fill in here in terms of Star Wars knowledge, in terms of Star Wars lore, what they're going to bring in from extended universe stuff that has not been canon yet. Cobb Vanth was not canon until they brought him in. So there's certainly there's precedence for them doing that there with the Mandalorian. So why wouldn't they do it in some way with the Book of Boba Fett? I'm just curious what path they're going to walk here. Yes, it's cool to have them together and coming together and cleaning up Tatooine maybe, but yeah, as I agree with you, going off on adventures off planet, going somewhere else to explore something, I think would be very, very interesting to see for sure. I mean, the thing I'm going to enjoy about, well, I hope I'm going to enjoy about Andor is the exploration of that time in the Star Wars universe and possibly new planets, new locations. And I'm hoping, I don't sense we'll get a lot of that in Kenobi, but I'm hoping we might get some of that here in the Book of Boba Fett, where we go into another planet or go to another place and kind of bring that to life. Already people are speculating that we got a Battlefront planet or a Battlefront mention in the trailer here. So that's a possibility. What do you think about that?
I think it'll be fun to get to establish some of these new planets. My favorite thing about like seeing these trailer breakdowns are people are, you know, when you look back on like the Mandalorian season 2 and people are like, oh my God, it's an ice planet. Is it Hoth? Is it Ilum? And it's like, doesn't matter. It's not any of those. Just it's another ice planet. Like, and it's totally fine to establish a new planet that may look like a different one. So I just think it's kind of fun to watch that kind of stuff play out. So I think we'll be in some new locations for sure at some point.
Yeah.
But in terms of filling in these gaps in Boba Fett's past, I want to pose this question because there's so many, you know, even Tamara Morrison even mentions it in an interview that like there's so much mystery to Boba Fett and all of these gaps in the history that we just don't know anything about. But my question is that part of the appeal for Boba Fett? Is that like sort of mystery, like part of the appeal of his character? Is like getting all of the answers that we want going to ruin the mystery a little bit? Maybe do we really want that? Is what I'm asking. Do we want all the answers in this sense?
This is a valid question, because I think we're always, as fans, we're always having internal civil wars with ourselves between enjoying the mystery of something, but then wanting to know the answers about that thing, as if you're somehow going to hide the answers from everybody else if you get them. And that's never the case. And so you look at this in here and with Book of Boba Fett, and you wonder, okay, one of the things that made Boba Fett become as big as he was is what Laura pointed out at the beginning of this episode. He's only spoke 6 lines. So people were able to kind of put their ideas on him. And then, of course, eventually there were novels that are now considered, you know, what are they called? Extended universe? Is that what they're called? The stuff that's
legends.
Legends. Yeah, the considered legends that really went into a lot of what you got with Book of Boba Fett. Oh, sorry, with Boba Fett. And then you had the stuff that was canon that you've seen in the comic books. You know, like in the Darth Vader run, there's that stuff with Boba and going to find Luke and having, you know, find that stuff with Obi-Wan, all of that. There's battles there. So how much of that is going to find its way into this? I don't know. But I like the idea of keeping the mystery. So I don't want to see too much. I just want to see enough to keep me intrigued, but not too much to where the character is ruined for me. And it's like, oh, it's just Boba, you know, and that would, I think, ruin for me. Because even with Luke, some of the mystery of Luke is the fact that after Return of the Jedi, we just have the novels to go on until we get to the sequel trilogy to find out what was going on with Luke, you know, and what he was going through and what was he doing, you know, and that's fun. It's like those lost, same thing with the Bible, right? People talk about Jesus. There's those years he just disappeared in the desert and came and he was fully formed, ready to go and save the world, right? So it's like the mystery of those years people have written about, speculated about. There's rumors of lost books of the Bible that talk about that time. So there's the mystery that has to be a part of this. So maybe giving a better idea of who Boba Fett is without ruining the mystery overall, I think, is the smarter move. You know, because someone like the Mandalorian, the mystery is discovering his past, but the mystery isn't necessarily about discovering how he discovering or there isn't that kind of mythology around the Mandalorian, right? There, like there is with Boba Fett. So there's something to lose here if you mess up the reveal of the mystery. You know?
Well, there's a great balance that they struck in the Mandalorian. You know, we got a little bit of like those flashbacks to Din Djarin's childhood, and we learned like what the Children of the Watch is, and we don't spend too much time there though. You know, we're very much focusing on like what is Din Djarin's journey now,
right?
With Grogu in tow. And I think that, you know, they were able to establish it there. I think they'll find a good balance of it here. It's funny that you brought religion up because I did want to ask you about the title of this show. Why did they call it The Book of Boba Fett instead of just simply Boba Fett? You know, like, is it supposed to feel like a church service where it's like a reading from the Book of Boba Fett? Like, I don't, that's very much like what it sort of feels like to me. I mean, when they did the post-credit scene, I was like, So is it a book or like I wasn't sure, and I know a lot of people were questioning that. So I mean, how
Yeah.
I wonder though if it is supposed to sort of be an allusion to religion, and that we're
Mm,
going to be sort of seeing like an Old Testament style of justice playing out at times on
right.
Tatooine under Boba Fett's rule. I think it could be fun to sort of explore it from that point of view.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think there's another point of view, and that is the New Testament. He died and was risen again. And look at him now, essentially trying to rule with more respect, more love, more understanding, more vulnerability. Yeah, still with a little bit of a harder edge, but he's come here to say, I don't want to rule out of fear. I want to rule out of respect. So it's almost like he's changed, like he's risen. So the making the connection to the religious, although tenuous, I would say, I think it's valid, and you can make a case that maybe they want to throw that kind of aspect out there as a character with some missing years and some missing time, just like Jesus Christ in the Bible. There's missing time. So what are they going to do with that missing time? So to me, it makes sense. And there's a kind of, how can I say this? There's a kind of gravitas, for lack of a better word, that I rarely use nowadays. The idea of this is the Book of Boba Fett. So there's a weight to it, right? It feels a little more powerful when you hear that. So to me, I like the title, and I don't necessarily connect it to a religious thing, but when I do, as you just brought it up, it just gives it more weight. So it seems like it's going to be a lot more fun. And as I mentioned earlier, a lot more grounded and ground based in its approach. So yeah. Maybe
I like that response. Yeah. I like the word gravitas used there. That to what it brings to the title. I never thought of it from that point of view, and I like it.
Well, here, let me throw something else out here. These are supposedly the titles of the episodes, and if anyone doesn't want to hear this right now, just maybe mute right now. Laura, do you mind if I read them? I don't
mind at all. Let's do it.
This is according to Giant Freaking Robot. They put down that episode 1 is called The Champion. Episode 2 is The Assassin. Episode 3 is The Syndicate. Episode 4 is The Battleground. Episode 5 is The Homeworld. Episode 6 is The Warlord. Episode 7 is The Showdown. And episode 8 is The Hunter. So anything.
Now I'm questioning, there's only 7, I think. I'm pretty sure that was confirmed. Because I think originally IMDb had it listed as 8. And then like a week later it came out that it's only 7. I'm pretty sure.
All right.
I don't know off the top of my head how reliable that source was that said it was 7. But I thought maybe that was established. So yeah, I don't know. I like all of those because they do sound Mandalorian-esque. That in the sense of like the show The Mandalorian had very simple titles like that. So it sounds like it could be on point. I don't know.
Yeah, well, they're saying Giant Freaking Robot is saying that they are taking the cue from The Mandalorian, and that these episodes will be essentially chapter 17 through 24, even though it's book 1 of the Book of Boba Fett, or chapter 1 of the book. It's actually chapter 17 of the overall story, which makes me believe, if I'm to take what Giant Freaking Robot is saying, that yes, we're going to get Din Djarin to be a part of this. Let me throw one last thing out at you in terms of the possibility of connecting these storylines, and also connecting the Mandalorian with the Book of Boba Fett, and also some mystery here. Do we get Luke and Grogu doing an appearance, having an appearance, showing up here in some way, shape, or form? Do you think that's a possibility?
I think it's a possibility that Luke would come back to Tatooine at some point. I wonder if they would choose this route to do that. And I'm not sure what having Grogu in tow would add to that story.
Right.
But I just watched the season 2 finale of rewatched the Mandalorian season 2 finale today, and then ended up crying over my lunch break, which I don't like to do. So it was, it would be fun to get to. I'm very enthused right now about the idea of them showing up, or really just Grogu showing back up at some point, because I don't know if I can live without him. But I don't know if I would be curious to see if he does show up in this show with these characters, because Boba Fett and Fennec do have they have a history with him now, so it would make sense, I think, at some point for him to show up.
Well, also Den of Nerds is who speculates that's a possibility. They mentioned, well, look, here's Boba trying to rebuild Jabba's empire, which Luke took down. So Luke might have a vested interest in finding out, hey, what are you doing here on my home planet? What's going on here? And if we have Luke, who is playing Luke? Are we doing the CGI Luke like we got in The Mandalorian, or are we getting someone, Sebastian Stan, to play Luke and be a part of this? What do you think?
I want Sebastian Stan to play Luke. I like the idea of recasting this character and bringing a different performance and a different point of view to it. And I love he would just be perfect. He would just be perfect. But I will say, a lot of people were sort of annoyed about the like sort of deep fake technology that they used in the. Did I not? I think I did hear this afterwards that there was like some YouTuber that redid it and did it better.
Yes,
and then
that is
Disney
true.
hired him, I think, or ILM hired him subsequently to, maybe that's why they wanted to bring him in for that exact purpose. I'll be curious to see. But I like the idea of bringing it all back around to Luke having been the one that actually took Jabba, or really it was Leia that took Jabba down. But, together that group of people. Obviously the history is there for all of them, so it'll be interesting to see if any of them show up.
Yeah, I'm curious. I'm very, very curious. All right, we should wrap it up there. Just some speculation about where we might be going. Is there anything more you wanted to add to it, Laura, before we wrap up?
No, let's do it. I think we can wrap up for sure.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for watching this episode of The Jedi Way. I hope you're as excited as we are with the Book of Boba Fett just around the corner. I imagine we'll be getting those links soon, Laura, to kind of get an early look at these episodes and dive into them and have some fun with them. So hopefully we'll figure out if either we do reviews on here or maybe you come on to the Geek Buddies and do reviews again of that. It would be a lot of fun to kind of speculate what we're getting week by week from these episodes. So look forward to an announcement from us in some way, shape, or form about these episodes. But yeah, this is going to be a lot of fun. I wonder what you all think about what we speculated on. Let us know in the comments section below what rung true to you. And if we missed any speculation that's out there, bring it up. Maybe we'll respond to you there. I like to read the comments, so I'm sure I'll respond at some point when I see something that kind of piques my interest and approach. So let us know what you think. Remember to hit a like on this video and share it on your social media. When you share it on your social media, tell other Star Wars fans, hey, the Jedi Way is a cool place to listen to some fun content and some fun speculation. Laura, another awesome show. Thanks so much for joining. And please, where can people find you and everything you got going on?
You can find me at Force Toast Pod right up there. There it is. That's the show that I host with my friend Alice, where we drink wine and talk about Star Wars. We're doing that every couple of weeks. I'm releasing new episodes on Tuesdays. You can follow that show at Force Toast Pod on Twitter, and you can follow me at @shutup_Laura.
Yeah, Laura, you're tweeting more. You're tweeting a lot lately. I'm following you, and there's a lot of speculation. You're getting into the Marvel stuff. You're getting into all kinds of stuff. You're getting access to everything. Your opinions are flowing more and more. It's been fun to follow you, and your speculation, your points of views, I really dig. So definitely follow her on social media. She's a good follow for sure. As for me, you can follow me at The Rocha Says on Twitter and on Instagram. And remember to, did I always say subscribe to the channel? Yeah, subscribe to the channel down below and hit that bell button. We just crossed 19,400 subscribers. I'm trying to will into Christmas wishes crossing 20,000 subscribers. So if you haven't subscribed and you're watching the show, please do me a favor and subscribe down there and hit that bell button so you see when we're dropping all the content we do here. All right. Take care of yourselves. Be well. This has been chapter, 25 of the Book of the Jedi Way. And we're out of here. We'll talk to you next time with another brand new episode. And Laura, what do we have to tell them at the end of every show?
As Qui-Gon Jinn once said, your focus determines your reality.